Welcome, everybody. I hope you had a fantastic Labor Day if you're American. If you're not American, it means summer's over. We are back. This is Season 2, Episode 2 of the weekly Quantum World Detangled with my friends Denise.
Hi, everyone. Denise Ruffner from Cambridge Quantum Computing, coming to you from a very warm Southern California with lots of wildfires, but safe. And Tommaso.
Hi, everyone. Tommaso from Entropic Labs, calling you from Singapore. And André, summer is not over. Summer is never over here.
It's a matter of perspective. Summer is never over. When it ends here, it starts somewhere else. My name is André. I'm the CEO of Interference Advisor. Today we're joined by Eamon Darcy from Down Under. And Eamon has a dirty secret that he keeps in Bermuda. He just confessed it to me. So Eamon, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Thank you, André. Yes, I did live in Bermuda many years ago, which was a very exciting time. Now, most people in the industry are coming from the quantum computer side. So they're coming from computers into the next step, quantum computers, whereas I have that background, but I also have a cosmological background. I've studied cosmology, the Big Bang, dark matter, dark energy for many, many years now. And I quite often have to remind people of the physics behind quantum computing. So it's just a very exciting time at the moment. And I've written an introductory course to quantum computing. And I recently just presented to 575, so it was rather a large presentation, computer experts all across Australia, from the ACS, the Australian Computer Society. And they did a poll, and the number one issue they wanted to discuss was quantum computing. And the response has been fantastic. So it's all happening. It's all about to happen.
Well, we're excited to have you. Australia, like Bermuda and my home Miami, is a great place to watch the stars. Denise will see what's in the stars for you and quantum. Denise?
Thanks, André. So, Eamon, it's nice to have a chance to talk to you. I've seen you on a number of webinars that we've been on. Tell me more about your business and tell me more about where you're going with your business.
Great question. Like people in this industry, it's all very new, so we're adapting very quickly. It's basically the Quantum Education Center of WA. So the first thing I want to do is communicate to the general populace as well as the corporate world, but definitely to the young people about how important this is. So I've done a number of webinars to high schoolers in New York, Mumbai, and in England. I'm just signing up to do a regular 34-week teaching of 9 to 12-year-olds in London on quantum computing. So I just love to do that. So that's one part of the business. And then the other half is what I call the bridge between corporates and quantum developers. So like with any exciting technology, there's exciting software, exciting hardware. I might add, in Australia, we have a company called Quantum Brilliance who I'm doing a lot of work with, and they are producing quantum diamond technology. The beauty of that is that it's at ambient temperatures. So it doesn't have to be cryogenically frozen. It doesn't have to put up with all the additional overhead that brings. Because it can work at room temperature, it can go anywhere that a classical computer can go. So I'm bringing this message to a lot of the corporates in Australia and other places. So effectively, my business is educational in a fun way and in a really inspirational way, because we all know this is real. This is the biggest paradigm shift we may ever get, and that's a big statement, but that's how big I think this whole thing is. Quantum physics is just unbelievably interesting. So this education and then the corporate bridge. So getting out, and I'm doing this right now. I've just started getting out, talking to large corporates about preparing for the quantum paradigm shift. In fact, that's what my talk to the Australian Computer Society was about.
Okay. When you first said for WA, I was thinking Washington, and then I realized WA is, I'm guessing, Western Australia?
Your guess is 100% accurate. I should have said Western Australia, yes.
Okay. Well, I run into that. I always say I'm from Cambridge Quantum Computing, and everybody says, oh, in Boston. No, UK. So I get that. Tommaso, do you have some questions for Eamon?
Yeah, for sure. And I also just have a warning for everyone who's listening. They started drilling in the unit next door. So if you can hear me very well, that's why. Hopefully it will be fine. So I do actually have a few questions. I would like to focus on two things. So you mentioned education a few times, which is something very dear to me. And together with education, I usually think also of talents. So the kind of talents we are going to need in the quantum computing industry. So I'll ask you two questions. You can choose which one to start with. The first one is about education, and this is the following. What do you think is missing, if anything is missing, in the current educational landscape for quantum computing? And about talents, at the beginning of the call, you mentioned that you have maybe a slightly different background than most people do in quantum computing today. So, the more the ecosystem evolves, the more people with different backgrounds are going to be joining it, right? So, who do you think we should really make an effort in attracting into the field? So we have a lot of physicists, we have computer scientists. Who else is missing in the party? Who else should join the party?
Wow, well, they're two great questions, Tommaso, and I'll do my best to answer them. In the education, your first question, in the education area, what is missing? I don't think an awful lot is missing. The beauty of the internet this day and age is that you can find information on any subject that you so wish. So more importantly is to know what skills and what education you need. And as an example of that, I will use linear algebra. Now, for quantum computing, and I'm always asked, what prerequisites do you need to, number one, do my course, and number two, just to get into quantum computing in general. And I always say, you don't need any specifically, as long as you're curious and willing to learn and willing to work and study hard, you will be able to get ahead. But if there's one aspect that I think you really have to get on top of, is linear algebra. Now, I hadn't done linear algebra for 40 years or something like that, but because the internet's got linear, it's got, as I say, every subject covered, I could quickly find great courses. Udemy do a good one, brilliant.com or .org, I can't remember. Does great courses on everything. And I did a number of courses, and now I'm pretty conversant in linear algebra. So I think as regards what's missing, it's more, I think people, especially at the outset, should map out what they need to know. Talk to the knowledgeable people, like Denise and Andre. There's many people who will help you, and look at the different issues that you need to understand. And I do believe quantum physics per se is one of them. in the quantum computing world, we're always saying, if you measure a qubit, it reverts to 1 or 0 with equal probability. Well, what does that mean? Nothing else in the world does that. So if you're just coming from a computer perspective, you won't understand about collapsing the wave function with the double slit experiment. Funnily enough, I'm doing a presentation, a deep dive tomorrow on my channel, which I show with Tyrrell France, Australian Quantum Computing Australia, a meetup, and I'm doing a deep dive into an incredible experiment called the delayed choice quantum eraser. And what that does, it proves that, amongst other things, events that have already happened can be altered. Now, and that sounds like pop science, but it's very, very real, and it's very well known in the quantum physics, the theoretical physics community. So, it's so interesting. So I think if you are just approaching quantum computing from the computing side, you're going to miss out on an awful lot of the real exciting physics underlying it. And perhaps that has answered in some way the second question about what talent. You do have to be multi-skilled and have a multi-disciplinary approach to quantum computing these days. And that's why I love this industry, this sector, because number one, there's so much happening in it. I'm old enough that I can remember the late 70s, PCs first came around. That was a huge paradigm shift. So before that, it was mainframe with dumb terminals. And then the world opened up with PCs. And in mid to late 80s was the internet. The dot-com eventually crashed, but the dot-com period where the internet just, Google and Amazon and all these people appeared. But this shift that we're about to get is going to be so much more than that. And you have to have a talent for understanding the technology, and how deep you want to go into that is personal, but there's an awful lot to learn. But you have to know that, and then you have to know how to convey and communicate the message.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the answer. André, you want to go with your magic fast questions?
Absolutely. In the spirit of the one and only French philosopher Marcel Proust and the legendary James Lipton, Eamon, I will be asking you 12 questions. Answers in the length of one word are perfect. One sentence will be tolerated. Anything longer, you will be reprimanded by Marcel Proust through my vocal cords. There is no wrong or right here, obviously. So if you're ready to rate Marcel Proust, the principal aspect of your personality, Eamon.
Curious.
The quality that you desire most in an entrepreneur.
Kindness.
What is your best virtue?
Enthusiasm.
What is your principal flaw? What do you appreciate?
Wait, what was the flaw?
Lazy.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sometimes a bit lazy. I know I should be doing something and I don't.
We all struggle with that.
Yes.
What do you appreciate most about working in quantum technologies?
The never-ending journey of discovery.
If not a quantum entrepreneur, what would you like to be?
A cosmologist, a full-time cosmologist.
Who is your who is your favorite scientist?
André, König. Oh, sorry, no, not him.
I haven't published anything yet, but thank you.
Yes, Paul Dirac, DIRAC, who's a great scientist in antimatter, but he's also, it's Dirac notation in quantum computing.
Who's your favorite entrepreneur?
I would actually say Elon Musk at the moment. I think, you know, he's reaching for the stars literally.
He's not working in quantum, so let's get back to quantum. What is your favorite quantum computing modality?
I would say the block sphere. A full understanding of the block sphere.
What would be your biggest quantum dream?
For it to happen tomorrow.
What would be your biggest quantum nightmare?
Doesn't happen tomorrow. We never get there because there's still a dichotomy of opinion of how practical usage it will be, and how long, like Shor's algorithm, how long away is it? You know.
Imagine your quantum dream comes true, and tomorrow you have the first universal quantum computer. Who would you give it to?
I would give it to the astronomical community, and I would simulate the Big Bang.
Very interesting. Eamon Darcy, where can people reach you if they want to learn more about you, your efforts, your background, and cosmology?
Well, they can reach me at my email address, which is darcy.eamon@gmail.com, or on my website, which is Quecwa, QUECWA.org.au, and I always answer any questions there.
It was great to speak to Down Under. As always, we try to be global, and we appreciate you joining us. Concludes Season 2, Episode 2 of the weekly quantum world Detangled. You are now detangled.